Dear reader, I'm Tony and this is Book Text. It's time for another Friday Reads Victober style. But first, our word of the day is actually a phrase of the day. It is the Victorian slang phrase, got the morbs. You got the morbs when you feel a temporary melancholy or when you're feeling a little down, depressed maybe. I'm sure that morbs is short for morbid. You're feeling morbid. So you've got the morbs. I hope you're doing well and that you don't got the morbs. Okay. So I'm going to go over what I've finished reading this week, what I'm currently reading, and what I'm going to pick up, hopefully, in the next 7 days. So I have finished 2 books. I went ahead and I finished reading my poetry collection that I had been reading for the past couple of months. I was doing a poem a day, and that was Carrying Over, if I can get the glare to not be glary, Carrying Over by Carolyn, Kizer. This was a collection of different translated poems, and I think of all the different cultural traditions, poetry traditions in this book, my favorites were the Chinese poems. So I read both ancient and modern Chinese poetry in here and really liked that. So I'm going to be seeking out more translated Chinese poetry in the future. I gave that collection 4 stars because not all the poems were great, but the majority of them were very touching to me. They touched my soul, which I think is what poetry is intended to do. Then I also finished reading for Victober, Robert Louis Stevenson's The Master of Ballantrae. This is kind of a Scottish adventure story, and it was a weird book. Maybe it was fairly normal for Victorian standards, but for Robert Louis Stevenson, I thought that it was a little less quick-paced. His other books that I've read or other short stories like The Curious Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or The Strange Case, no, I can't remember. But anyway, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, those are quicker paced stories. This one was a little bit more meandering. It did have moments of excitement and romance, capital R, but for the most part, it was a little bit slower. So it was a different kind of Stevenson novel. If you're going to be reading this one, just be aware it is worth reading, but it is going to be a little bit slower. So this one tells the story of 2 brothers who are torn apart through the Jacobite uprising in 1740s in Scotland. And they fall onto different sides politically, and then for the rest of their lives, they are bitter enemies. And so I thought this was interesting. There was a lot of biblical kind of textual references and intertextuality, where the characters frequently referred to each other as Jacob and Esau. So you have the kind of sibling rivalry between those biblical characters. I definitely saw a lot of references to Cain and Abel, other biblical brothers that fought. And the Master of Ballantrae himself, one of the brothers, was frequently referred to as the devil. And so it was just very biblical, and I loved that aspect to it. It was kind of the Scottish Jacob and Esau tale, where one brother, right, loses his inheritance, and the other brother is kind of constantly trying to fend him off. It was very interesting in that way. There was a lot of adventure mingled in to the slower part. So there was pirates, and there was seafaring, there was buried treasure, like you might expect from Robert Louis Stevenson. But there were also some, like a midnight duel by candlelight in the bushes. There was a man who kept seeming to die, but maybe didn't die. It was really interesting to keep reading. So definitely worth it. A little bit of a shorter story, just over 200 pages in this edition. But I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I think I've read better, but I really enjoyed the intertextual layers in this one. Okay, and then I am currently reading several books for Victober. One of them is an audiobook about Queen Victoria by Lucy Worsley, and I picked this up kind of on a whim. I needed an audiobook. I had just finished my last one, and I thought, well, let's do something that's related to Victober. And so this is a nonfiction, really well told, well written account of certain important days in Queen Victoria's life. And I really enjoyed, so far, I've gotten up to her courting Albert, who she will eventually marry. Spoiler alert. And I enjoyed seeing her family history. I didn't know any of that. I knew some of her kind of coronation story, but I didn't know kind of when she heard that she was going to be queen when she grew up, and the moment that she learned that her uncle had died and she was now the queen. That was fascinating. And it actually got me into the Victoria miniseries, or series maybe, on PBS. I've been watching it on Amazon Prime lately, and it covers the same kinds of events that the book covers. So I've been enjoying kind of supplementing my reading, my listening with watching. So I'm looking forward to continuing with Queen Victoria. I'm also still reading Shirley by Charlotte Bronte, and this one is another kind of meandering story. It almost feels like we're seeing, every time we pass a character, we get a really in-depth glimpse into that character's life, their past, their present, their future. And it's different for a different kind of writing technique, but I really enjoy it, actually. I've enjoyed some more of the deeper, broader stories. So there's a lot of material here, there's a lot of content, but I'm enjoying it so far. I haven't even met Shirley, the titular character. I am almost 150 pages in, haven't met her yet. So she's yet to come, but we're setting up this really intriguing context, and I know that there's going to be a contrast between Shirley and one of the characters that I have met already. So I'm really interested in seeing how that plays out. There's definitely been some moments of proto-feminism so far, and I overall just really enjoy Charlotte Bronte's writing style. She has some really elegant descriptions of landscape, of characters, of plot events. It's just, I can really see what she's talking about in my mind, and it's delightful to read. So I'm thoroughly enjoying Shirley. I wasn't expecting to, but I think I might like this better than Jane Eyre. So far, I'm only 150 pages in of about 600 pages, so it may change, but I think I'm set with this one. I think Shirley's going to be a bosom friend. I'm also still reading, and this isn't necessarily for Victober, but it's sort of tangentially related to Victober. This is Mary Wollstonecraft's Vindication of the Rights of Women. So this is nonfiction written in the 1790s, and Mary Wollstonecraft is the mother, famously the mother of Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein amongst others. And I have some of Mary Shelley and Mary Wollstonecraft's novels that aren't Frankenstein and aren't nonfiction. So I'm so excited about Mary Wollstonecraft right now that I think I'm going to pick up one of her other books soon, or the only other book. I can't remember what I have. But so far, I've read chapter 1. It was a very long chapter, and chapter 2 is going to be, I'm sorry, I've read chapters 1 and 2? Where did I miss chapter 2? Oh, there's chapter 2. All right, so she's been talking about womanhood. She's talking about femininity and masculinity in really interesting ways. She has a scathing comment about toxic masculinity. She has a lot of really good reasons, kind of logic about why women should be educated to accomplish the very purposes that men aren't educating women for. She argues that they need to be educated in order to fulfill those purposes perfectly. So it's just so interesting. It is older, but it is kind of the foundation of much of the proto-feminism and feminism writings that have come later. And it's just so much fun to read. you can hear when she's trying to kind of restrain her passion. I wouldn't say anger per se, but she's probably angry about a lot of things. But you feel her power, I guess. She had a lot of personal power. And so she is now for sure a role model of mine. So I'm loving that one. And it's so much fun to hold and read because it's an Everyman's Library edition. Lovely. Then I also started reading The Warden by Anthony Trollope. This is a Victorian novel about a clergyman who is falsely accused, I believe falsely accused, of misusing church funds. So far, I'm only one chapter in, but it is my very first Anthony Trollope book. And so I'm trying to figure out his writing style. And it has seemed that he is a little bit less of a landscape writer and more of maybe a political, personal writer. So I am trying to figure that out, trying to figure out if I like that kind of style, because I do prefer kind of landscape, maybe more descriptive, like Charlotte Bronte. I almost said Mary Shelley. I'm not getting there yet, but Charlotte Bronte's descriptive writing style I really like. George Eliot's writing style I enjoy. I'm not sure what I feel about Anthony Trollope so far, but the story is pretty easy to read, pretty easy to get into. And so I've met the Warden, I believe, and I have learned about his past. I've learned about the past of the place where he lives. I've seen kind of the location where he lives, and I'm just curious to see how this story unfolds. So I'll be continuing with the Warden for this next week. Then I have a couple books that I would like to pick up. This is ambitious of me because it's going to take me a while to get through Shirley, and I just barely started reading the Warden the other day. So I hope to get to these. But I have been really craving a fall read, a fall mystery in particular. And because the weather is turning here, it was a little bit cloudy this morning. It's supposed to possibly rain, and I live in a place that doesn't get a lot of rain at all, and I just love the rain. So I am hoping that I get kind of into a setting where it feels really like autumn finally, and I can read or start reading Louise Penny's Bury Your Dead. I love these books. It is part of the Inspector Gamache series, and it's set in a small town. Most of them are set in a small town in Canada, and they're just so cozy. They're deep, like they make me think and they make me feel, but they are cozy. And so I'm looking forward to hopefully dipping at least my toes into Bury Your Dead. I probably won't be able to read very much because I'm trying to put the focus on prioritize Victober, but hoping to get to that one soon. And then my next hopeful to get to, if I finish the Warden or if I decide I need to pick up a new book, I am hoping to start Elizabeth Gaskell's Sylvia's Lovers. And I really don't know too much about this. I know that it's kind of a love triangle story, that it's set near the sea. You can tell kind of by the cover painting. I love Elizabeth Gaskell. I have not read this one yet, so I'm looking forward to trying it out. Because I haven't heard very much about it in either direction, I'm coming into this with a really open mind and just exploring what this story is going to be about. So I'm not sure if I'll have time for this one. I'm not sure if I'll like it, but I'm definitely going to try. And I find that I tend to, recently I've been pretty good about identifying premises or books, maybe authors that I will love, and I haven't really DNF'd a book in a long time. So I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I think this is going to fall in the line of I've correctly identified a book that I will enjoy. So that's what I have been reading and what I am hoping to read. What are you reading right now? How is your Victober going if you're participating? Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books, if you had any similar thoughts on them, or different thoughts. I'd love to hear kind of different interpretations, especially with the Master of Ballantrae, which I was not expecting to be so intertextual or so kind of literary in that way. Let me know what you're thinking about these books. And remember, there's always another book.